Welcome Primary 5, Mr. Ahmed is with you. Today we will start in Concept 2 Unit 1, Lesson 1. This lesson is talking about the conservation of using water. We must conserve using water. As we know, the amount of fresh water that we can use, it's very small on the earth because the earth is covered with 70% water. 97% from this water is salt water, but only 3% of this water is fresh water, and most of this fresh water is frozen. So the amount of fresh water that we can use as a living organisms to survive is very small, so we must conserve it. But at first, let's know the importance of water to all the living organisms. All the living organisms need water to survive. No living organism can live without water. So, two-thirds from our body is consists of water, and water keep our temperature moderate. What is the meaning of moderate? Suitable to be alive. Our organs need a suitable temperature to work. If the if the atmosphere around you or of the temperature around you is very high, the temperature of your body is still constant. Or if the temperature around you is very cold, the temperature of your body is still constant. What helps your body to still constant in its temperature? It's the water. And we need our body temperature to still constant. Why? To let our organs work in perfect way. So water make your temperature moderate or suitable for your organs to work in perfect way. And as we know, there is a limited amount of water on Earth. And most of water, as I said before, salt water. But very small part of it is fresh water that we can use. Uses of water. We use water in all of things in our life, like drinking, bathing, cleaning vegetables and fruits, fishing and transportation. When we ride the ship and go from country to another, that's the transportation by the water. Generating electricity. As we take in primary four, we used water to generate electricity, hydroelectricity, like from dams and from the waterfalls. We put the turbines here, and the movement of the water generate electricity to us. And also in agriculture, meaning planting, like this picture. Sources of water. In concept one, we take a lot of water bodies or a lot of sources of water like ocean and seas, lakes, rivers, ponds, rains, glaciers, and groundwater or aquifer. There are two different types of water as we know before, fresh water and salt water. Sources of fresh water, and we need to know each water body contain which type of water, fresh or salt. As we know, rivers contain fresh water, rains, glaciers, because glaciers they are large sheets of ice, and ice is a fresh water. Groundwater or aquifer, ponds, and streams. And as we know before, streams they are the beginning of the river. When they run off connected with the river, it's the stream. Sources of salt water, oceans, and sea. And we know before that most of the lakes on Earth contain fresh water, but sometimes contain salt water. Conserving the fresh water. Conservation of using fresh water, it means using water in correcting way and avoid wasting it. We must conserve the fresh water. Why? Because the amount of the fresh water that's suitable for our use is very small. Ways of conserving fresh water. Drink more juice instead of water. Turning off the tap during brushing your teeth. Take a quick shower or bath. Turning off the water while washing your hair. Let's go to lesson 2. In lesson 2, we will take the water bodies one more time, but the new thing that we know the location. What is the river? Do you remember? River it's a water body that flows from high altitude to low altitude. This high altitude most of the time it's the mountains. So the water body of the river started with the mountain. So mountain is the location of the river. We will take a new object that formed around the river, which is called delta. Do you know the delta in Egypt? Yes, that's our Egypt. That is the Nile River, and that's the delta. At first, delta it's a piece of land, but how this piece of land is formed? As we said before, what is the location of the river? Mountain. So, when the ice melts on the mountains or a huge amount of rainfall fall on the mountains, a river starts as a stream in the mountains and the speed of the water because the water moves from high altitude to low altitude, it's very high. So, number one, river started in the mountain as a stream. As I said before, at the start, because it starts from high altitude, the water speed is very high. So the high speed of the water erode or breaking down the rocks around the water and forming valleys. Okay, the valleys it's the place in the land in which the river is flowing or running, and the water moves very quickly across the land and picks up the sediments. Let's start from the beginning. The river starts as a stream. As it starts from the mountains from high altitude, the speed of the water is very high. This high speed of the water eroding or breaking down the rocks around it to make its own way or make the valley that it will run through. When the water breaking down the rocks, it takes these small pieces, and we took these small pieces of rocks. We said that it's meaning by sediments. So sediments meaning small pieces of rocks. So moving water breaking down or eroding the soil or the rocks around the water and make small pieces of water that being broken, we called it sediments. Water carries the sediment, okay, to the end, and the river ended with ocean or sea or another large river. When the river come to the end, the sediments start to precipitate or deposit. After a few years, the deposits or the sediments form layer above layer above layer above layer, forming land, this land called delta. As we said before, the river breaking down the rocks around it because it's moving very fast and carries these small pieces of rocks in the shape of sediment and put the sediments here. And after years, the layers of sediments form this land, and we call this land delta. So, as we said, delta is a triangle shape. As you can see, it's a triangle shape. So delta it's a triangle shaped area formed of mud and sediments that form when river meets sea or large river. Number two, lake. Most of lakes contain fresh water, and the lake often form in low-lying area. The location is low-lying area. When there is low-lying area or low area, the water of the rain collected in it, so forming the lake. As we said before in concept 1, lake is a water body that's surrounded by land. Wetland. Wetland is a land that's partially covered with water. So, wetland is a land that's partially covered with water, and wetland contain fresh water or salt water. We have two types of wetland, swamp and pond. Swamp and pond. Swamps are called marshes, ponds are called bogs. So, the wetland is different from the lake. Lake it's a water body that's surrounded by land, but wetland it's a land that's partially covered with water, as you can see in these pictures. Okay, and there is wetland salt and wetland freshwater. And we have two types of wetland, which are swamps and ponds. Swamps has another name, which is marshes. Ponds has another name, which is bogs. An estuary. The estuary, we take it before, it's a water body that forms when a fresh water of river meets salt water of sea or ocean. So the location, river meets sea or ocean. And it contains a mixture of salt and fresh water. As it contains a mixture of salt and fresh water, so all the living organisms that live in salt water exist in the estuary, and all the living organisms that exist in the fresh water exist in the estuary. So the estuary contains thousands of living organisms of plants and animals because it has a mixture salt water and fresh water. Number five, groundwater. What is the groundwater? Do you remember? It's a water body that forms under the Earth's surface and layer called aquifer. Groundwater, it's all the time fresh water, and it forms in the cracks and the spaces of underground rocks. When there is a space between two rocks inside the Earth from underground rocks, okay, this space is filled with water, so we call this water groundwater. So the groundwater is located in the cracks and the spaces of underground rocks. And there is an important note, which is there is more amount of groundwater on Earth than rivers and lakes. Oceans. As you can see, that's our Earth, the map of all of the Earth. That's an ocean, that's an ocean, that's an ocean, and that's an ocean, and that's an ocean, and also that's an ocean. And these pieces are the land on the earth. So as you can see, oceans surround the countries. That's countries. And oceans surround all the countries and they are connected with each other. As you can see, there is nothing separate the oceans from each other. They are all of them, they are connected. And we all know that the oceans contain salt water. The ocean floor has mountains, plains, and plateaus. As you can see, that's a mountain, and that's something smaller than the mountains called plains and plateaus, and that's abyssal zones that we take before, the very deep areas that the sunlight cannot reach. That's the deep ocean, or the deep saltwater ecosystem. Earth's freshwater. More than 10% of the world's animal species only in freshwater. The animals and the plants that live in the water in all of the earth, only 10% from them live inside fresh water. That's why, because the fresh water only represents 3% from the water on earth, and most of this water is frozen in the what? In the cryosphere. Do you remember? So, a small number of the plants and the animals that live in water live in fresh water, but most of the plants and animals that live in water live in what? In salt water, as the amount of salt water is very small on the earth. Poor quality of fresh water has a dangerous effect on the living organism. Poor quality of water, if the water is not good enough for the living organism, it will lead to the extinction and the death of the living organisms inside the water, or the living organisms that drink from this water. Lesson 3, we will take small parts of lesson 3 because the rest of the lesson is cancelled. Human strategies to control and conserve fresh water. We do what to conserve or using water in correct way, and the fresh water amount is very small on Earth. Number one, building dams across the rivers. As we know that the river makes something which is called flooding. When the amount of water increase inside the river due to the huge amount of rainfall, flooding is happening. Okay, so we build the dams to get benefit from this water. When the flooding happen, the water go to the land and the water is wasted. But when we build the dams, this extra water instead go to the land and waste it, we collected this water behind the dams and made artificial lakes like Nasser Lake that we have behind the high dam in Egypt. So this extra water instead of go to the land we take it and save it to use it in correct way, changing the path of water to irrigate the crops. When we give the crops the amount of water that they need, the only amount of water that they need, not give them a lot of water, and the plants will take what it needs and the other water will be wasted. But when we give the plant only what it needs from the water, so we are saving our water or conserving the fresh water. Human activities causing imbalanced water leads to the human activities like the pollution and the global warming make drought in some places of fresh water and flooding due to the global warming that increase the temperature of the earth and the ice melt, and when the ice melts the water level get high and go to the land, make flooding. And all of these slides are cancelled to you, and we only have a small part at the end of the concept. Yes, this part, activities in our daily life that require water. Taking shower, washing hands, cooking food, brushing teeth, flushing a toilet, watering a plant. Ways to conserve water we take before. Two ways to conserve water like building dams and the change irrigation of the crops, and also turning off the tap during brushing your teeth or take a quick shower. Okay, in this part we will talk about filtration of the water. As we know that the most water on the earth is polluted right now due to the human activities. So water go to stations to filter it and to make it able to be used by the living organisms without harming them. And also, we don't filter the water that we drink or use only, but we take the wasted water and filter it, the wasted water from us, and filter it one more time by removing harmful material from water and use it one more time. So we are conserving using the water. Thank you for listening. Nisima Ahmed was with you.